Marty isn't here. Marvin came home from the hospital. Yeah. And Mal is going to be going to rehab. Yeah. It's Legacy is its new name. Okay. I'll begin with our learning sponsors, A Year of Learning by Sue and Arnie Garelick in memory of Malka Pro-Man and Philip Mann. Yisrael David ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Beryl ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Yosef Meir ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Anya Rivka Pro Rosna bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, and in memory of family murdered in the Holocaust, Harav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bat Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Leslie and Gail Kaplan in memory of their parents, Harry and Marjorie Sedell, Irving and Pearl Kaplan. Children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of Toby Paris, Saratova bat Yisrael Dov in her memory. Charlie Gelfenstein and Sam Levine in memory of Ramona Levine, Rachel Mata bat Asher. Friends of Nina Monester, Nechama Asna bat Yitzchak Ahalo. Many friends of Stephen Vigdor, Lezecha Nishmat Simcha Melech ben Meir Leib Halevi. Friends of Marcy Kurtz, in memory of her great niece Leah Bracha. Have a month of learning in honor of, by the many friends, for the Lydia and Abe Krause's 50th anniversary. Have a month of learning in memory by Mel and Haran Haller of his mother Fega Bas Yaakov B. Pizer, in memory of her stepfather Avram Michal ben Shmuel Halevi, by Josh and Carol Sanborn, in memory of his mother Chiena bar Aryeh Leib and his father Shmuel Aryeh ben Baruch. We have a week of learning by Charlie Gelfenstein and Sam Levine, in memory of Charlie's wife and Sam's sister, Menucha Sarah bat Yechiel Michal, and Sam's mother and Charlie's mother-in-law, Zissel bat Yehoshua. Alan Mosak isn't here this morning either. Evelyn and Isaac Blachor, a memory of her mother, Pero Rivka bat Harav Menachem Mendel. We have a day of learning by Phyllis and Gedalia Reese. Gedalia is not here this morning. Okay, in memory of her father, Harav Yosef ben Rav Shimon. And that is it. And Shema's having Aliyah, Crank Rafia, Velti, Yeshua, Shema Tzliah, Chol B'nai Yisrael, Good Gaben Shia. What? Oh, I hope for a simcha. All right. Okay. Okay. I am going to start only because I needed to review it for myself 3 or 4 times. Okay, on the bottom of Yud Zayin Amud Beis, very quickly, okay, we have the statement there. Okay, the Gemara says, gets into a discussion there, okay, the Bei Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Tana, Amar Kra, Ukratem ubekut shechem. It says, it both says, and you shall declare and you shall harvest. Ezehu chag she'ata koreh v'kotzer. What holiday is it that you declare, make a declaration, and you harvest? Havei omer ze chag atzeret. That's Shvuot. Emat, at what point? Ilema b'yom tov ktsira b'yom tov mishare. If you're going to say it's Yom Tov itself, is that possible? Do we even permit that on the Yom Tov? Ela lav l'tashlumim, but rather it applies to the days following tashlumim. V'afal gav de itmar, the Rabbi Elazar Amar Rabbi Yoshi, even though we have the statement made by Rabbi Elazar in the name of Rabbi Yoshua, it's tarich to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. we're also going to need the statement of Rabbi Eliezer bar Rabbi Yaakov. The Imi de Rabbi Eliezer Amar Rabbi Yoshia. I'm going to say if we only had the statement of Rabbi Eliezer bar Rabbi Yoshua, Hava Amina, I might say then, Ma tashlumin shel chag hamatzot asur b'asiyat melacha, the same way that the intermediate days of Pesach work is prohibited. Af tashlumi atzeret nami asur b'asiyat melacha. So the same way then as a prohibition on the tashlumin of atzeret, even though it's not chol hamoed. Okay? Kamash Malan to Rabbi Eliezer bar Yaakov. Therefore comes the statement of Rabbi Eliezer bar Rabbi Yaakov. That's right. That therefore he said clearly that the reaping, the harvesting is okay, right? Is to be done. So what happens? Ve'imi de Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, and if we were only to have the statement of Rabbi Eliezer bar Rabbi Yaakov, and now we get to today's daf on the top of Yud Chet, Lo yadana kama. I wouldn't know how many. Okay, I wouldn't know how long. Kamash Malan therefore comes to teach us the Rabbi Eliezer Amar Rabbi Yoshua. Comes a statement of Rabbi Eliezer bar Rabbi Yoshua. Okay, so that gives us that statement. Now we have the following. Okay, Ash, is there a chumash? Oh, okay, I want to cite the pasuk. Okay. Yeah, but I understand that. It's just inconvenient for me to pull it out. It's easier for me to find it quick in the chumash than opening up my art scroll with a lack of space here. That's okay, but you're right. Okay, Vayomer Alehem, Hu Asher Diber Hashem Shabbaton Shabbat Kodesh Lashem Macha et Asher Te'ofu Efu V'et Asher Tevashlu Bashelu V'et Kol Ha'adif Hinichu Lachem L'Mishmeret Ad Haboker. Right, that's the right person. Okay, so based on that pasuk, we're now going to see there's an attempt to by Reish Lakish to give a different explanation. Okay, what does he say? V'chag hakatzir. Okay, ezo hi chag she'ata chogeg v'kotzir. But what is the holiday in which you bring a chagiga and you also harvest? Right? Havei omer ze atzeret. This seems to tell us that it is Shavuot. Emat, right? At what point? Ilema b'yom tov. If we say it's Yom Tov, Tzira b'yom tov mishari. Do we even permit any kind of harvest on Yom Tov? Ela lav l'tashlumim. No, but this must come to tell us it's for the tashlumim, the days that the restitution was one translation. That may have been Art Scroll's use of the word restitution. I don't remember. Okay, so what happens? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, and Rabbi Yochanan responds now to Reish Lakish. Okay, in fact, there are some texts of the Gemara and Rashi's text actually has it written in there. Okay, Ela me'atam, but rather from here. Okay, Chag ha'asif. Learn it. We might have learned it from the phrase Chag ha'asif. If that's the case, Ezehu Chag sheyesh bo asefa. We might argue then, what holiday is it that has ingathering? Aveomer zeh Chag HaSukkot. Again, we might say what might be the holiday of Sukkot. So again, we're still trying to make this comparison. Are you going to compare Shavuot to Pesach, or maybe you should compare it to Sukkot? After all, both of those holidays have Tashlumi. Okay, so who's to say you've got a dafka make it associated with the Pesach? Okay, all right, so what happens? Okay, so the Gemara now continues in a moment when I find my place. Okay, all right, it's Chag Sukkot Emat. Ilema b'yom tov, again, the same argument. Malacha b'yom tov mishari, do we permit malacha on the yom tov? Ela b'cholo shel moed. That's what we're talking about. So the Gemara now raises a new question, right? Cholo shel moed mishari. Do we really permit malacha? Okay, whether it's ksira, whether it's sifa, do we really permit this on chol moed? Okay, so the Gemara tells us, Ella, the cholo shel moed mishari, Ella chag haba bisman asefa. Rather, when we say it's Chag HaAsif, it is the holiday in which, right, it is the time of the ingathering. Hachanami, here too, Chag Haba Bisman Ketzira. We're talking about the holiday that comes at the time of the harvest. That's what we're saying. Okay. Miklal, the Travayus Viralaho, the chulo shel moed asur ba'asiyat melacha. Now, this is an interesting point here. It's because both of them, says the Gemara, namely Rabbi Yochanan and the Reish Lakish, both agree that on chol moed there is no doing work. Now, how do we know that both of them agree? Number one, Rabbi Yochanan says so specifically. How do we know Reish Lakish is in that opinion? According to Rashi, because he doesn't argue with him. Doesn't come back with an answer to Rabbi Yochanan. Minahani mili, what's the basis for this? Tatanu Rabbanan, as the rabbis taught in the Bright, Et Chag Hamatzot Tishmor, Shivat Yamim, says the pasuk. Okay, the holiday of Matzot you should observe or guard for 7 days. Limeid al chulo shel moed. This teaches us that in regarding the intermediate days, sha'asur ba'asiyat melacha, that it is prohibited in terms of work. Divrei Rabbi Yoshaya. That's the view of Rabbi Yoshaya. Rabbi Yonatan Omer. However, Rabbi Yonatan says, Eino tzarich, you don't need that. Okay? Namely, I'm going to show you a way to determine that chol moed is prohibited by work based on a kal v'chomer. And then we're going to see that after he presents this kal v'chomer, Erwin, you can hear me? Yeah. Okay. After he says that, we're going to see a number of attempts to destroy a pircha, to destroy the kal v'chomer, and then to defend it, then to destroy it again, then to defend it, back and forth. Okay? So that's why we bring it. I just wanted to take a moment to point that out so we're able to follow what the flow of the Gemara is going to be. Okay? So his argument, Rabbi Yonatan, is I can base this on a kal v'chomer. What is it? Kal v'chomer. Uma rishon ushvi'i she'ein kedusha lefneihem ula'achreim. Whereas the first day and the last day, okay, are such that they neither have a holiday, I'm going to use that way, or a sacred day before them or afterwards.
One on one.
Okay, in other words, on either side, okay, first day you have, okay, and then you have, right? Okay, Asur, and with those regards to those days, the first day and the last day, okay, what happens? Asur be'asiyat melacha, there is a prohibition of work. Chulo shel moed, on the intermediate days, sheyesh kedusha lefneihem v'la'acharehem, where there is both before the intermediate day and after the intermediate days a holiday where there is clear prohibition of work. A no din, is it not logical? Sheyehe asur ba'asiyat melacha, that it should be forbidden with doing work.
Doesn't make sense.
Okay. Now, in other words, his argument is,
Doesn't make sense.
Well, we'll see in just a second. So Gemara says, wait a second. Sheshit Yamim, Sheshit Yamei Breshit, Yochiku.
A
Okay.
regular week.
Okay, I'm going to go back now and say, wait a second. You argue that if there's a sacred occasion at the beginning and a sacred occasion at the end, the intermediate time frame is prohibited with work. I'm going to give you an example, okay, of a normal week, right? Where I can say there's a holy occasion at the beginning, namely a Shabbos, and there's a holy occasion at the end, namely another Shabbos, and in between, yet you can still work, okay? So that's the pircha, okay? All right, so Breshit, okay, so he says, Sheshit Yemei Breshit Yochichu. They will prove that you're wrong, that it's an attempt, a pircha of the Kal V'chomer. Okay, why? Sheyesh kedusha lifneihem ula achareihem, that there is an occasion of sanctity, namely Shabbos, before them and after those normal weekdays. Umutarin ba'asiyat melacha, and it's permitted the work. Okay.
That also doesn't make sense.
Wait, we're not done yet. Okay. So the Gemara says, but right, ma l'sheshit yemei breshit. What are you doing comparing it to normal weekdays? They're not. You can't compare them to a chol hamoed. Why? She'ein bahem korban musaf. Because in chol hamoed we have a korban musaf. That's not the same as a normal weekday, right? Tomar b'cholo shel moed sheyesh bo korban musaf. But I'm going to give you another difference. Weekday chol hamoed, it's got a korban musaf. That means it's a higher sanctity. So maybe, therefore, again, because of that example, I'm going to argue it's also going to be forbidden to work. Okay? Oh, hold on, says the Gemara. Rosh Chodesh Yochia. Wait a second. You want to argue based on a Korban Musaf? Fine. I'll give you an example where there is a Korban Musaf, but you can also work on that occasion too, namely Rosh Chodesh. Okay? Rosh Chodesh Yochia. Sheyesh bo Korban Musaf, that Rosh Chodesh has a Musaf offering. Umutar ba'asiyat melacha, and we do have permission to work on Rosh Chodesh.
That's only a minute.
That's different.
It's not
Okay.
even it's not
Okay.
It's not even a
Hashi's point was, what about women? Okay, on Rosh Chodesh, but it's not doesn't apply. Okay. Mala Rosh Chodesh, she'ein karui mikra kodesh. Hold on a second. I'm going to give you another issue. How about those chol hamoed? They're called mikra kodesh, right? They're considered, and the phrase is a doraita phrase. It comes from the Torah. Tomar becholo shel moed shekarui mikra kodesh. What are you going to say then when chol hamoed is also called mikra kodesh? O'il v'karui mikra kodesh dinhu she'asur ba'asiyat melacha. Since they are used, since the Torah itself uses the same phrase for the holiday and, sorry, and for Chol HaMoed, sorry, Tanya Idach. Okay, I'll try to give that argument. Wait a second, says the Gemara. Tanya Idach, I'm going to bring you another brighter. And again, I'm going to try to bring a proof here that Chol HaMoed is forbidden for work. Kol melechet avodah lo ta'asu. We have that phrase in regards to the holiday, but what about that?
If this is, if we finished with the Kal V'chomer.
Right, we're done there. We're going to just come up with another problem. Limeid al chulo shel moed she'asur b'asiyat melacha. That comes to teach us also regarding the prohibition of work on intermediate days. Divrei Rabbi Yossi Aglili. That's the view of Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Rabbi Akiva Omer Eino Tzarich. Rabbi Akiva says, hey, I don't need that bright. Right? Harehu Omer, because I have a pasuk that tells me, Eile Moadei Hashem V'Gomer. V'meha Katuv Medaber. What is it talking about there? Im Berishon Harei Kvar Ne'ema Shabbaton. Okay? It says, if you're talking about the prohibition of work there, okay? And we already know that that's a prohibition because we have the phrase Shabbaton, a day of rest, which by definition tells us it's Isur Malacha, okay? That's regarding the first day. Im b'shvi'i harei kvar ne'emar Shabbaton. Again, I have the word Shabbaton. Again, by definition, that's an Isur Malacha that tells me that's the last day. So why do I need the phrase, right? Mikra Eila Moadei Hashem. Why do I need that part of the pasuk? Ha en k'haktuv medaber ela b'chulo shel moed. That forward must be talking about the intermediate days. L'lamedcha she'asur ba'asiyat malacha, to tell me that those days it is forbidden to do work. Now, if you don't like Rabbi Yossi Aglili's explanation, we'll bring you another brighter. Okay? Thank you very much. Call me a bit lower. All right. Tanya Idach, another brighter, citing a pasuk. Okay? And as we go into this brighter, I just want to point out, we are normally used to the word atzeret as an assembly. The Gemara here is going to use appropriately, but what we're not commonly familiar with, the term atzur, connected with atzeret, as an occasion where we restrain or preclude from doing something. Okay?
Well,
So
that's what Shmini Atzeret. The holiday's over, but we can't go home. So
okay,
we're held back.
we're held back. We're precluded or restrained from.
Leaving.
Okay, so what happens? Tanya Idach. Sheishet Yamim Tochal Matzot Uviyom Hashvi'i Atzeret Ladonai. Ma Shvi'i Atzur. The same way. So we cited the pasuk. The same way, Mashvi, on the seventh day, Atzur, we're restrained or precluded, held back, right? Af Sheishet Yamim Atzurim. So therefore, these other days, we are restrained, right? Mashvi Atzur Bechol Malacha. The same way on the seventh day, we are restrained, held back from work. Af Sheishet Yamim.
Here it says B'chol Malacha. We're not allowed to do
Any kind of work, b'chol malacha, with work, right? Af sheishet yamim atzurim b'chol malacha. So here are we therefore saying that on these other days, 6 days, we are also restrained, held back from doing all work? Talmud Lomar uvayom hashvi'i atzeret. However, the text then says, on the seventh day, it is atzeret. Right? Hashvi'i atzur b'chol malacha. Ve'ein shisha yamim atzurim b'chol malacha. No, that seventh day one is restrained. But the 6 days, okay, therefore, those days, no restraint.
Less restraint.
Ve'ein shisha yamim atzurim b'chol malacha. These, right? Ha lo masram. So the Gemara says, wait a second. You're going to argue that that would seem to imply that Chol HaMoed is totally permitted with malacha. If you're saying that those days are not. But says the Gemara here, in this case, lo masran hakatuv ela lechachamim. but rather the Torah is giving over to the sages to do what? Lomar lecha eze yom asur ve'eze yom mutar. Which day is prohibited? Which day is permitted? Ezo melacha asura ve'ezo melacha muteret. What kind of work is forbidden and what kind of work is permitted? So the implication, therefore, is from that definition, then you will realize that there are certain kinds of work that are prohibited on Chol HaMoed and certain kinds of work that are permitted on Chol HaMoed. Okay, that's the point. Okay, now, if we've been reached to that point, we can now better understand that the Gemara cites the next part of the Mishnah. Umutarin behesped v'ta'anit shelo l'kayim et divrei ha'omerim atzeret achar haShabbat. Okay, that it is permitted in eulogizing and in fasting, in order that we don't maintain, okay, the Sadducees, their point of view, okay, that we're talking about really that occasion that we said, if Atzeret comes out on Sunday.
No, if it's Friday or Saturday.
Okay, well,
So
the implication is the slaughter day is Sunday, and therefore, if that's the case, they will say when you count up to Shavuot, you always count, and it's going to come out on Sunday. Okay?
And here they're doing all these kabbanos, that's
Okay.
a riot.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens? All right, by the way, you all know that the church based its interpretation of determining the date for Easter on that Sadducean perspective, by the way. Okay? Maaseh it v'itma. And there was on this, the following was commented. All right, Maaseh umet el kasa belud. There was an incident when a certain person named El Kasa died in Lud. Alexa, that's who I talk to in my, I say, Alexi, give me a. Oh, this is a different Alexi. Okay.
No, but this
Uh-huh.
shows that the family knew what was going to happen.
Oh, come on. V'nichnesu kol Yisrael l'softa. And all of this, and the people came to mourn, to eulogize. V'lo hinicham Rabbi Tarfon, and Rabbi Tarfon, who was the Rav in Lod, right? Didn't permit them. Mipnei sheyom tov shel atzeret hayah. Why? Because it was the Yom Tov of Atzeret.
But this year it was
Okay.
actually
Or it was Yom Tov. Yom Tov Sagadata. Do you really think it was Yom Tov? Iba Yom Tov. If it were really Yom Tov, Mika'atu, would the people have come? No, of course not. All right, they wouldn't permit them to. All right, Ella, Ema, I would say Mipnei Sheyom Tavuach Hayah, because it was the day that they would normally do the slaughtering, which meant that Seret would have been either Friday or Saturday, right? Lo kasha, no, not a problem, says the Gemara. Kan b'yom tov shechaliot achar Shabbat. Here it's a question if the Yom Tov came, okay, after Shabbos. Kan b'yom tov shechaliot b'Shabbat. In another situation, it was that Yom Tov came out on the Shabbos. Right. Okay, new Mishnah. All right, I got a long introduction to this Mishnah. Okay. All right. Assuming that I can read my notes. Remainder of the chapter, okay, of this parak and the remainder of the whole Masechet is going to deal with issues of Tuma and Tara. Okay? As all the participants, when they come for the regalim, needed to purify themselves in order to enter the temple grounds and to offer sacrifices. So that leads us to understand why this topic comes up here and its connection to what we've been dealing with. Okay? So, Matnitin, Notlin liyadayim. One takes a quarter log of water, okay, and washes their hands before eating, okay. Lechulin for unconsecrated foodstuffs, lemaaser for tithes, uletruma and for truma. Okay,
Yeah, my say means my say.
okay. Maasers could be maaser shem. Okay, interesting. Is that, does Art Scroll cite maaser shem? Yeah. Okay,
That's what they used to the lady.
yeah.
No, because the ladies' miser is full.
Yeah.
It's only my Shani that has.
Ula Kodesh, and for some sanctum, others for offerings, matbilin, one must immerse. Okay, now what part of the body? Let's assume for the moment it's the hands. Ula chatat, and for a particular level of offering, namely a chatat, imnit ma'u yadav, if the hands became tameh,
That's nechatzos. What we're talking here is
The
the
chatas.
handling the water that's used to make the paraduma mixture. That's what the chatas is.
not what the other explanation that I had. Okay, it was for a different. Im nitma'u yadav. Okay. Im nitma'u yadav nitma gufo. If his hands become tameh, it's as if his body is tameh. Okay. Taval lechulin. Now we're going to see the significance of intent. If one immersed for non-consecrated food, huchzak lechulin asur lemaaser. Okay, it is maintained for non-consecrated, but is prohibited for maaser. Let's call it maaser shein. Okay, all right. Taval lemaaser, if the intent was to immerse for maaser sheni, huchzak lemaaser asur letruma. Okay, so we begin to see levels here. Okay, it's forbidden for that. Taval maaser. This is it was his intent to, right,
He's just washing his hands.
okay, right. Taval maaser, if he immersed his hands for maaser sheni, uchzak maaser asur letruma. Okay, then it's forbidden for truma.
Even if
Okay.
they use the mikvah.
In other words, it's not a question of what he used. It's the question of his intent.
For truma or kudus, he needs a mikvah. He can't use just a cup.
Yeah, that's clear.
Even
But
if,
that's clear from the language of Natila versus Tavila.
but even if dunks his hands in a mikvah,
That's not sufficient.
really-
Yes, but that's
the
not
wrong
sufficient.
intent.
That's why I said it's an issue of intent all along. Okay, if he was immersing his hands for something on one level, only for the level that he intended and not for something of a higher level. Okay, that's what the mission, that's what it's going on, continue to tell us. Okay, all right, so we said, Taval l'maaser, huchzak l'maaser, asur l'truma. Taval l'truma, if he immersed his hands for truma, huchzak l'truma, it works for truma, asur l'kodesh. It is forbidden in regards to the level of kodesh. Taval l'kodesh, if he immersed his hands again for kodesh, huchzak l'kodesh, asur l'chatat. It's forbidden regarding chatat. Taval l'chamur. So now we get a general statement. Taval l'chamur, if he immersed his hands for something that's more stringent, mutar lakal, it is acceptable for something that is less, okay, below. Taval v'lo huchzak, if he immersed his hands and did not have an intent for some level in particular, ki'ilu lo taval, it's as if he never immersed whatsoever. Okay. Now, we're going to see further discussion of items. Big day Am Haaretz, okay, the clothing of an Am Haaretz, Midras, And I'm going to say here, midras is that we're comparing it to the treading of a zav. Okay, what happens? Leprushin. It is considered tame for prushin, for those that are more
Even cooler.
okay, yeah, for those who are more medaktek in the laws of tahara. Okay, big day prushin, the close of a prushin, midras lochle truma. That is considered, okay, like midras avazav, for those who normally practice the idea of eating truma.
Are they putting on the clothing?
No, contact with that clothing. Okay, big day ochle truma. Okay, midras lakodesh. Okay, clothing then of the eaters of truma is midras of zav to a kodesh. Big day kodesh midras lechatat. Again, now we get two stories about Chachamim. Yosef ben Yoezer haya chasid shebekuna. Yosef ben Yoezer, who was one of the Zugot, remember, was considered a pious person among Kohanim, right? Vahaita mitpachto, and his cloth napkin, right? Midras lakodesh was still considered midras, like a zav for kodesh. Yochanan ben Gudgada, another. Haya ochel al taharat hakodesh kol yamav. His normal practice was to eat even regular food as if it were on the level of kodesh. Okay, that's how scrupulous he was in Tuma Vatara. Right. Okay, she looks like a prune, right? All those mikvah well, right? Kol yamav v'haita mitpachto midras chatat, and his cloth napkin would still be considered midras zav for chatat. Right? Okay, now we're at the Gemara. So the Gemara wants to raise the following question: Chulin umaaser mi ba'u netilat yadayim. Do we really say that unconsecrated foodstuffs and maaser sheni require netilat yadayim, washing of hands? Okay, or minhei, but we'll bring a contradiction from a Braita. Hatruma v'habikurim, the truma and bikurim, first fruits and truma, chayavin alehem meita, they are going to bring an obligation of the death penalty if a non-Kohen eats of them intentionally. V'chomesh, and if a non-Kohen eats of them unintentionally, okay, they have to bring an additional fifth. Okay, va'asur lezarim, and it's also prohibited to non-Kohanim. Ve'hein nichsei kohen, and they are the property of the Kohen, which means that he can use them for things like using them for marriage, things like that. Va'olin be'echad ume'ah, and if they get mixed with chulin, okay, the nullification level is 101. V'tu'unin netilat yadayim, and we say they require washing of hands. Va'arev shemesh, and they also require arev shemesh until nightfall. Okay, hare elu betruma ubikurim. This is in regard to truma and bikurim. Umasha ein kain b'maaser, but this does not apply to maaser sheni. V'kol shekain b'chulin, and certainly doesn't apply to non-consecrated foodstuffs. So the Gemara says, what happens then between this Braita and what we just saw in our Mishnah, kasha ma'aser ma'aser, we have a problem between one statement of ma'aser and another statement of ma'aser, kasha chulin achulin, and a problem between chulin and chulin, between the Braita and the Mishnah. Bishlema ma'aser lo kashi. Hold on a second, says the Gemara. I can show you that there doesn't have to be a problem between maaser and maaser. Ha, Rabbi Meir. One is the view of Rabbi Meir. Havaha Rabbanan. And one is the view of Rabbanan. In other words, our Mishnah, I'm going to argue, is follows the rabbis. Okay? Ditnan has taught, Kol hata'un bi'at mayim midivrei sofrim metameet hakodesh, where this Mishnah says all that requires the bringing of water, okay, from the chachamim, from the sages, okay, metameet hakodesh, it renders kodesh tamah, uposelet hatruma, and it nullifies or negates the truma unavailable or unedible. Umutar lechulin u'maaser, but it is permitted for chulin and maaser. Divrei Rabbi Meir. That was the view of Rabbi Meir. Okay, so here the Gemara is really citing us the Mishnah that shows what was the argument between Rabbi Meir and the sages. The Chachamim osrin b'maaser. And the Chachamim hold that it is forbidden regarding Maaser. So that's why it can say that in that argument, what our Mishnah follows the Chachamim, as we see in this Machloket, as opposed to Rabbi Meir. But we're still left with the other Kashi, namely, Ela Chulin Chulin Kashi, right? So what happens, says the Gemara? Lo Kasha. Here we can say maybe again there's no problem. Kan, in regards to our Mishnah, Ba'achila, we're talking about eating. Kan, in our Braita, B'negiah, we're talking about contact.
So a woman can cook the food without washing.
Right? Mat kifla Rabbi Shimi bar Ashi. Rabbi Shimi bar Ashi, however, challenges us. Be'achila de ma'aser. Okay? Oh, sorry, I skipped accidentally. Ad kan lo plige Rabbanan alei de Rabbi Meir. Up to this point, the rabbis don't disagree with Rabbi Meir. Ela ba'achila de ma'aser. With only regards to eating second tithe, ma'aser sheni. Aval b'negiah de ma'aser u'ba'achila de chulin lo pligi. But with regards to contact of Maaser Sheni and regards to eating non-consecrated food, there is no argue. Ella, rather, says the Gemara, Idi v'idi ba'achila. No, both this and this is an issue of eating. Velo kasha, right? So that would give us back our problem again on chulin. Kan ba'achila denahama. Here we're talking about the question of eating bread. Kan ba'achila depiri. Here we're talking about eating fruit. Okay? Other produce. Okay? Sid, you all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Da'amar Rav Nachman, says Rav Nachman, kol hanotel yadav lepeirot. Anyone who washes his hands for other produce, fruit, whatever, harezeh migase haruach. Okay, he is over you hara, a little bit of an example of arrogance, right? Tanu Rabbanan says a Braita now when we get to a new piece. Well, if his minhag is to eat certain things just totally in tahar, right? Okay. Okay. All right. Tanu Rabbanan says a Braita. Okay, hanotel yadav, right? One who washes his hands, right? What happens? Nitkavein, if he with the appropriate intent, yadav taharot, his hands are pure. Lo nitkavein, if he did not have the appropriate intent, yadav tme'ot, his hands are still considered to be tamei. Why? Just throw out the idea, yadayim askaniotain. The hands are busy, okay, wherever they may be. V'chein hamat bil yadav. And likewise, even when one immerses one hands, takes the hands and dips them in the mikvah, right? Nitkavein yadav, with the appropriate intent, taharot, the hands are tahor. Lo nitkavein yadav, if he did not have the appropriate intent, yadav tmeot, his hands are still tummy. Vahatanya, says the Gemara, but don't we have asking a question for citing a text? Bein nitkavein, bein lo nitkavein, yadav taharot. Whether he has intent or inappropriate intent, aren't his hands tahor? Shouldn't there be, you don't just do that, kacha. Amar Rav Nachman, lo kasha. Not a problem, says Rav Kasha. Kan lechulin. In one case, we're talking about unconsecrated. Okay. Kan lemaaser. In another case, we're talking about maaser, higher level, and we'll stop right there. Okay.
What's the highest level?
Thank you, Rev.
Kachim. Okay. 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 Think of, in other words, right? What kachim is, you're bringing an offering that's going to be on the mizbeach, right? So if you're going to participate in it, if it's shlomim, all right, then you have to be in a state of tahar. Because who are you sharing it with? Kadosh Baruch Hu. Right?
Where are we going to be tomorrow?
I believe, Jus tells me we should be able to be upstairs tomorrow. Okay? Well, that's why Gary said better today that he thought we might have to be up there both days. But when I was up there to check where you and Zev were, okay? Jew said he's pretty sure he can get it.
Thanks so much, Rev.
All right?
See you later.
What? Well, I was wondering how many guys we were today, because I noticed we had at least 3 or 4 guys absent.
Well, I'm here.
Well, you're online, I see that.
Yeah, right.
But I was thinking, I'm wondering if we would have had enough room in the old library. You couldn't find your Gemara? Okay. Where?
When you took your Gemara downstairs, was mine up there? It was there already. No,